Hello, Algebra 2, and welcome to lesson 2.6. We're going to talk about using the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. And our essential question today is how can you use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations or to predict the nature of their solutions? So as we go through this, right, we're just going to lay a little bit of groundwork here and, remind you that quadratic equations are these functions are in the form f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And we have this special thing, the quadratic formula, that gives us the solution to such an equation when f of x equals 0. So when f of x is equal to 0, right? We set this thing equal to 0. We can find the zeros, the solutions, the x-intercepts, the roots. These things have a bunch of different names. What they all are, though, is the solution to the equation when we set it equal to 0. So the quadratic equation, I'm going to remind you, you've seen it before. It is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. So in the example that we're going to do today, we're going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula to solve it. Let's just go ahead and get right into it right away. Here we go. Okay, so this has already been set equal to 0, and that is very important. You need to have 0 on one side and all of your other terms on the other side. The next thing that we need to do is we need to identify what A, B, and C are in this particular quadratic equation. So B is equal to negative 4, and right here we see that C is equal to negative 6. We're going to be able to plug those in. I'm going to go ahead and write the quadratic equation again here so that we can see how we are substituting these values into this formula, right? So we're going to get the quadratic formula out. All right, so let's begin with the substitution. So negative b, so we're talking about negative 4, right? Plus or minus. And b squared in this case is negative 4 squared. And then 4 times a we identified as 3. And c we have identified as negative 9. 2 times a, which is 3. And there we go. Our first step is this substitution step. Now we'll begin to simplify, right? And really the big deal is I got to simplify all this stuff that's inside of this square root and make sure that I am following my order of operations. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so x equals. So I'm going to go ahead and change that minus 4 here. It's going to become a positive 4. Let's go ahead and evaluate this exponent. So negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then we'll see that I've got a negative times a positive times a negative. So we'll eventually wind up having a positive sign here, right? And let's go ahead and calculate 4 times 3 times. That's going to give us 108, all divided by 2 times 3, which is 6. Excellent. Now we're still working on, what's underneath our square root here. So let's simplify that. That's going to be the square root of 104. Sorry, 24. Square root 124 divided by 6. Is there a square root of 124? No, right? We would like that to be a whole number. I put that in my calculator. The square root of 124 is approximately 11.136. we really don't want to express this answer as a decimal right now. We're going to want to simplify this radical here. But before I do that, I'm going to actually break this into two pieces. I'm going to call this 4/6 plus or minus the square root of 124 divided by 6. I can split that up in that way if I'd like. But let's go ahead and look real quick at how to simplify the square root of 124, because we're going to need to do that in order to express our answer in the most simplified form. So in order to figure out how to simplify this, I need to divide this by perfect squares. Perfect squares are numbers that result on one number multiplied it by itself. For instance, 4 is 2 times 2. 4 is a perfect square. 9 is 3 times 3. So 9 is a perfect square. 16 is 4 times 4. So 16 is a perfect square. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to divide this by perfect squares. So it turns out that 124 is divisible by a perfect square that is 4. It turns out to be 4 times 31. I'll notice that 31 is prime. So this is as simple as it can be. The square root of 4 is 2. So that's going to come out into the front of my square root, my radical. And I can simplify that as 2 times the square root of 31. So now my last step that I have here is to simplify some fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and write what x is just over here on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, because I'm running out of room. So, and I'm just essentially simplifying all of these things over here. So that's going to become 2/3, right? 4/6 is going to become 2/3 plus or minus. And now instead of the square root of 124, I'm going to write that as 2 root 31 divided by 6. And I can still simplify it one more time because this 2 and this 6 are both divisible by 2. If I divide them both by 2, then I get 1/3. Right? So we can write this as the square root of 31 over 6. That's going to give us two solutions. Okay, we've got the solution that x is equal to 2/3 plus the square root of 31 over 6. And then our other solution is 2/3 minus the square root of 31 over 6, right? Because we have to take into account that we're going to both add and subtract the square root 31 over 6. So these are our two solutions to our quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. If you're not, I hope it gets better. Bye.